Okay, let's get started. Once again, welcome everyone. This is a webinar for getting started with performance analytics, and the focus is how to use the out-of-the-box dashboards. As I mentioned before, using the out-of-the-box dashboards really gives you a kickstart. Those out-of-the-box dashboards, the content packs, they are developed by the application team that also developed the application. So think about knowledge management. There's an application team for that. They also develop a dashboard for knowledge management. So that is really tailored to, well, the way knowledge management comes out of the box. So the dashboards are really fit for that. So how does that work? I will tell you and show you also in an instance how that works and the things that you have to do. But before we get there, let's first have a set of housekeeping rules here. Please stay on mute. I'm actually not sure if you can unmute yourself, but there will be some Q&A after the presentation. If you have questions at any time, just put them in the Q&A panel or in the chat panel, and I'll try to address them later. This session is recorded, as you probably know, and that will be shared afterwards on the community. And after the session ends, there will be a short survey. I would really appreciate that if you would fill it out and to get your feedback to make these types of webinar better next time. So just a short introduction of myself. My name is Peter Goors. I'm a product manager for IT service management and DevOps. I think since end of last year, the DevOps moved into or under the umbrella of IT service management. So for you who have a ITSM Pro license, DevOps is now part of that. You're entitled to it. But that's not the topic for today. The topic for today is performance analytics. If you feel that you want to contact me after this meeting, you can also send me an email, peter.goris@servicenow.com. And although there is that I in there, you still pronounce it in Dutch as Peter. So yes, I revealed that. I'm Dutch. I'm based in Amsterdam. So we make it 7 p.m. right now, but I'm happy to explain to you in an hour, how do you get started with performance analytics? Not joining today is Paul van Nistelrooy, my colleague. He's also a product manager for ITSM. He will be joining though next week when we have a roundtable about how to get started with performance analytics. I hope you will join there as well. This is the webinar, and that means it's a lot of talk and presentation and showing from my side. And I will answer some questions, but next week is really the roundtable where we hopefully have an open discussion and where you can also discuss and with your peers on the struggles that you might have or the value that you found in performance analytics. Okay, let's get started here. First, we have 3 poll questions. The first one is, have you already implemented PA? And so there are 3 answers possible here. I have not started yet, but I'm interested in how best to get started. I'm in the process of rolling out PA within my organization. And the third is PA has been rolled out and it's actively used within my organization. Now, I hope that Jamal, you can kick off this poll because I'm not sure I can. Oh, here we go. Thank you. And just give it a bit of time. See that we have like 34 attendees and about half of you have answered. Just give it a couple more seconds. Oh, that's nice. I can see some preliminary results. Yeah, so let's end the poll. And maybe you can share the results as well, Chanel. Actually, I can share the results as well. So here we go. So 26 of you gave an answer. most of you have not started yet with performance analytics, but 30% is in the process of rolling it out, and 23% you have already rolled out PA, and you're actively using it already in your organization. That helps me also to pitch my story a bit. Thank you for your feedback. Let me go to the deck. Getting started with performance analytics, and especially using the out-of-the-box dashboards, the content packs, is actually 4 steps that you have to do. First of all is to figure out what you're actually entitled to and activate those dashboards that belong with that entitlement. And what you want to do is review the out-of-the-box data artifacts that come with the content pack. And that's really the building blocks for your indicators and the scores that you're going to collect, and your dashboards that you're going to share with your constituents. And they should be like 90, 95, 100% right, because once again, they are developed by the application teams that actually built the application for which that content pack is created. But it could be that you have done some slight configuration on the out-of-the-box application. And if that's so, then you probably also have to do a bit of modification on the data artifacts. Once you have done that review, you're going to collect scores. And there are actually 2 actions that you have to take there. One is the historic score collection. You only run it once, and the other one is the daily score collection. In the out-of-the-box content packs, it's primarily daily score collections, and those are the collections that you're going to do moving forward. So you just schedule the job that is already available. You simply have to activate it. And then finally is check results that show up in the dashboards, in the widgets, in the analytics hub. Are the numbers okay? And you probably want to do that check together with the subject matter expert that knows about the application for which you activated the dashboards and the content pack. Okay, let's go through the especially step 1 to 3 and 4. You probably won't have time for that, but let's get started. So if you think about activating out-of-the-box dashboards, first step that you do is try to identify your entitlement. So as an admin, you have to be an admin. You can navigate to subscription management in your instance, and it will show not only performance analytics, but all the subscriptions that you're entitled to. And with that, you will see also plugin names, and the plugins are actually the content packs. So those are the ones that you want to activate. Now, for a given entitlement like APM, you could have multiple plugins. You don't have to install all of them, multiple content packs. You can pick and choose which ones you want to activate. And that's the next step, actually. So you know your entitlement, you know the plugin names, and then actually activate those plugins. Most of them are plugins. Some are store apps, but let me share an instance here with you and move to that instance, and it is this one. So we also have this page here about the available analytics and reporting solutions. It's on the docs, and it's actually over here. It's available for all the supported family releases. I'm looking at the ones for San Diego. And here you can see all the different content packs. So we have some generic ones that includes something like configuration management or knowledge management. We have solutions specific for APM. And as you see, there are within APM, application portfolio management, there are a couple of plugins and content packs available. It's not only APM, like what you have with customer service solutions. It could be about advanced work assignment or change management or something about communities and so on and so on. And we have that here listed for all these different entitlements. And it depends a bit on who has created the content pack, but here as an example, if you would go and check out the knowledge management one, if you click on it, it takes you to this specific page for knowledge management. In this case, it shows you some generic information about analytics and reporting solutions in general, something about domain separation and so on. But also it has here a link to the actual dashboard itself. And here we see in the docs, just a couple of screenshots about this dashboard. There are 3 tabs. One is about content usage. This is what's going to look like. So you see some time series, you see some single scores and so on. Then the other 2 tabs. And then below that, you can actually see what was the reason, the rationale to build this dashboard. For whom was it built? What is the goal? What is it that you want to achieve? Do you need a specific role to access this dashboard or not? And then they listed out all the indicators that are used directly or indirectly in this dashboard. So this is what you get when you activate a content pack. You get a set of indicators, you get a dashboard, and it's already configured, including some roles that are needed or not. Now, so what is it that you're actually going to do? So this gives you the full information. Once again, it's on the doc side, available analytics and reporting solutions. And if you go to your instance and you would go to subscription, I'll show it just for a second, but it doesn't show up anything here for me. This is where you want to go to all your subscriptions. This is a demo instance. It's not a production instance, so it doesn't show anything. But this is where you normally would see all your entitlements. And then the next step would be, if you know your plugins and the plugins that you want to activate, if you go to plugins, this is still the old way to do it, but it works pretty good actually. Then it will open up what is called the all applications. That always takes a bit of time, so you have to be a bit patient here. And it shows you a list of all the plugins, the ones that are installed, the ones that are not installed, the ones that you have subscribed to or not subscribed to, and so on. And let me be a bit patient here. And then we'll get the list of plugins. As you can see, next week is that roundtable. Shamal put in the link in the chat box, so please sign up. I'm really interested to hear from you. And that's what that roundtable is all for, that we can talk, actually have a discussion with each other. So here we are. This is the plugin list. Now it moves you to all applications. But if I go now and search for performance analytics, for instance, it gives me all the performance analytics plugins, 110 of them. Some of them are already installed. Some are basic ones that you want to have anyways. But if you scroll down a bit more, we can see some like the content engagement analytics. This is a content pack. It's an out-of-the-box dashboard for this specific application. As you can see, this is actually a store app. So if you click install, it will take you to the store, and then from there you do your normal installation. As you probably know, a store app technically is still a plugin. And here we have a content pack for advanced work assignment. This is a traditional plugin. So you can install it in this case with I'm a ServiceNow employee. So for me, this is all available. But once again, check your entitlement and understand which plugins you can activate. Usually what the content pack does, it will not only give you that access to dashboards, indicators, and so on, but also it is limited to a set of tables that belong to the application. You're not supposed to, once you have installed one plugin for knowledge management, you're not supposed to create indicators for item if you have not bought that subscription. Okay, if you have any questions, once again, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A panel. I'll try to address them later in the webinar. Let me switch back to the deck shortly, and that is this one. So that first step, activate, you need a ServiceNow admin to help you out, at least a person with that role of ServiceNow admin, if you don't have that role yourself. But now you know, these are the plugins. And then next step would be to review your out-of-the-box data artifacts. And what I mean with data artifacts is really the building blocks that eventually will allow you to create your dashboards and the widgets on top of the applications and the data in ServiceNow. And when I say data artifacts, we're talking about the indicator sources and indicators, the breakdown sources and breakdown mappings, and maybe some performance analytics scripts that are part of that content pack. I listed out separately here also additional conditions. They are part of the indicators. That is something that you also want to check. If the conditions, because that's what this actually is all about. These are all based on getting the queries, creating the queries, running the queries against your database. And so you want to make sure that you have put in the right conditions for those queries. So what does that look like? So let's go back to the instance. This one, right? So if we go to performance analytics, what I usually do is I just type in YT and then I'll scroll down here to performance analytics. In this case, I'm interested for now as a first step in the sources. So I'm going to skip indicators and breakdowns and I go to sources and take a look at the indicator sources. In this environment, in this instance, it's a limited set. It's only 33 indicator sources. The more content packs you install, the more records you will get as indicator sources. So it can become a bit confusing. But the ones that I want to take a look at are the ones for incident management. And you can, as you can see here, there are only 4 of them. Just a little side step here, you see all kinds of indicator source for benchmarks as well. So if you sign up for benchmarks, we will collect scores and then give that back to you and compare them how you do against your peers. And that's all based on performance analytics. So, but let's go back to what we wanted to do. Indicator source. An indicator source is, from a technical point of view, is pretty straightforward. It's just a set of conditions on a table. As you can see here, the facts table here for these 4 are incident. Now, if we want to create an indicator, we're not interested in all the records in the incident table. That could be a lot, right? But we're only interested for our indicators, at least, for only maybe the new instance, or the ones that are currently open, or the ones that are resolved. These are the 3 basic ones that we use. There's also a closed one, but this is also the 3 basic ones that you would have in general for anything that's workflow or process, right? It's all input, throughput, output. And so your basic interest would always be in these subset of records, in this case, from the facts table incident. So what does that look like? So if I go to incident new, then an indicator source has a name, and then it's based on a facts table incident, and then it has a condition opened on today. And that's it. And that gives me a subset of records. Now, in this instance, I can actually take a look at them. But in this instance, I know that I don't have anything because I only have records up till yesterday in this demo instance. So let me change this, but this is how it comes out of the box, and this is how you want it to be. But let me change this to yesterday and now do a preview. And then it says, oh, it will retrieve 160 records. So you can check them. If this is really straightforward, just one condition, not too difficult. And then if you click on that link, it will actually show those 160 incidents that have an opened date on yesterday. So this is how you can check if you have set your right conditions. Well, in this case, this is, once again, this is pretty straightforward. This is a indicator source. So just we have the incident table, apply a condition, get a subset of records. And from this, on this, what we're going to do is we're going to create indicators on top of this indicator source, on this subset of records. And creating an indicator means primarily put an aggregation on one of the columns. So it could be a count, so you're counting your sysids, for instance, but it could also be an average duration on the business duration of those incidents that were opened today, the new incidents of today. That's the indicator part. So if you think about it, in general, an indicator source, you set a condition, it's workflow, so it will very often be some datetime-based condition. In this case, it is yesterday. So if we're going to collect moving forward from this one, okay, it will always collect, let's fetch that set of records of incidents opened on yesterday. And for that reason, it makes it fit for a daily collection. If I would have, and this is a bit, just a side step here, if I would have something like a condition like opened on last week, okay, what would happen if I would collect this going forward? I would see the same set of records for 7 days. So if I would do a count of those open incidents on last week, for 7 days, I would get the same number. And that's correct. But you could ask, okay, how valid is this? How useful is this to collect this on a daily basis? That's where you can switch that to a weekly frequency, for instance. Okay. Out of the box, all those content packs work off the standard calendar, the built-in Java calendar, the SQL Server calendar. But if you have created your own business calendars, you can select a different business calendar, and those calendars have their own frequencies, for instance. But like I said, out of the box, standard calendar works perfectly for all your applications and all of your out of the box dashboards and indicators. Okay. If you have questions, please put them in the chat or a Q&A panel, and I'll try to address them later on. Like I said, indicator source, a set of conditions. Let's take a look at another indicator source. And here we have, this is always a confusing one. This is the indicator source instance open. So we're interested in incidents. I would see a subset of records of incidents that are not resolved or closed yet. So normally what you would do if you do your report, you would say something like where active is true. In this case, we did it slightly differently. We got this set of datetime conditions in here. And the reason why we do that is because we do this to make this fit for historic collection purposes as well. If you do active is true and you do an historic collection, you will not get an accurate number going back, like today's April 14. If I would collect that for April 1st, I would not get an accurate number based on active is true. Now with this set of conditions, I would get an accurate number. So that's why we put that in. And it really says, like, for anything that's open right now, that means it has to be opened on today. So it has to exist, or open before today, right? Makes sense. And then it's not resolved, or resolved is after today. And that's the weird part, but that has to do with the historic score collection that I'll explain a bit later. Remember that we have this argument in here called today. It's just a placeholder for an actual date and time. At the time of the score collection, this gets translated into real dates and date times. I'll show you when we get there. So this is out of the box indicator sources for incident management, new, open, closed. Like I said, on top of this indicator source, we're going to create indicators. And for instance, here we could look at the number of open incidents. So if I have an indicator or 7 indicators created on top of this indicator source, now we take a look at the indicator itself, number of open incidents. And this is a pretty straightforward one. So what it does, once again, it has a name and a description, and it takes this indicator source, okay, and it does a count. I can also create a new one and say, no, I'm not interested in a count. I want to do an average of the duration of the business duration or something like that, right? So we have average of duration. And that would be a new indicator. I can say insert and stay, and it will create a new record as a new indicator. But what is nice about this, on the same subset of records. So I don't have to, every time when I create an indicator on based on open instance, I don't have to recreate that subset of records every time. I don't have to create that query with that subset of conditions, because I have done it once and I'm reusing that over and over again. So we know that that subset of records, once we have validated that, that's the correct set of records, then all the indicators based on that, we don't have to check if the number, if the right set of records are in there, because they are. And that's the beauty of that concept of an indicator source. And what is also very good to know about an indicator in general, will produce a number. Let me go back to the count. And as you can see, I don't have to specify a column when I do a count, and then it's straightforward. It just counts the records in that subset of records that we have defined over here. One of the things that number, that especially about something like number of open incidents, that is interesting, but you want to put that in a context. And the first context that you can put it in is give that indicator a direction. And in this case, we gave it the direction minimize. It means we want this number of open incidents, we want that to be as low as possible. And when the lower the number gets, the more happy we are. In other words, when that number goes down, what we not only show you is a score, but also the change and a change percentage. Based on this direction, the change and a change percentage, they will color green when that number goes down, because that's what we want it to do. If the number goes up, number of open incidents go up, the change and change percentage will turn red. Now, this is one step in setting context about the score that we collect. Another one is about targets. I'm not going into it, but yeah, it's what you expect it to be. You set a target of number of open incidents. I don't want it to go over a certain value. As soon as it goes over that value and you have a minimized direction, the score itself, so not to change and change percentage, but also the score will turn, in this case, will red. If it's below that target and you have a minimized direction, then the score itself, that number, will turn green. Of course, you can change that direction to maximize. And if you are indifferent or you simply don't know, you can give an indicator a direction none. And of course, then you won't have any color coding on scores and change percentage. So that's about indicators. What I said also is what is important is, and I'm not sure if it's on the next one, when you check your out-of-the-box artifacts, you also want to check additional conditions. And I should have shown you in the previous one, indicate there is no additional condition, but in this one there is. As you can see, the indicator source is still incident open. So it's retrieving all the incidents that are open right now. But for this indicator, I'm not interested in all of them. I only want the ones that have not been updated in the last 30 days. So I have an additional condition here and says updated date relative on or before 30 days ago. And that's those additional conditions that you also want to check for the out-of-the-box stuff. Once again, as I said in the beginning, I would expect that 95 to 100% is okay. But if you had made some adjustments in the configuration of the application as it comes out of box, then it's good to check this. Okay, indicator, I said indicator source, indicator, additional conditions. Next step, check your breakdown sources and breakdowns. So let me go now to the breakdown source. Once again, it's under sources, so breakdown sources. Like what I said, we have something like an indicator for incident management, number of open incidents. Gives you a great number, but now I want to see a bit more details. I want to add a dimension to it. I want to see it, not only that overall number, but I also want to see it per category, per per assignment group, per service, you name it. Those types of dimensions, or maybe filters, or what we call breakdowns. And first, what we need is that definition of that breakdown itself, the breakdown source. And as the name suggests, and what you already know from indicator source, it's just a set of conditions on top of a table. So if we take a look at, for instance, the groups here, the assignment groups, it goes to the facts table. It says user group. That's where all your assignment groups are stored. And what we say is the condition is active equals true. Now, maybe you have some additional conditions that you want to add to it, because I could imagine that in your group table, there is more than just the assignment groups that you use for incident management or service management. There could be other groups as well. Maybe you want to exclude them for that indicator of number of open incidents. If so, add that condition to it. Okay. So we have here the breakdown source. Once again, straightforward. It goes to a facts table, puts a condition to it, so it limits the set of records that you get from this facts table. Let me go back here a second. What is tends to be a bit confusing as well is this one, the breakdown sources on choice lists. What you have to know, and it looks complicated again, but the point is the choice list, a choice list like impact, priority, urgency, category, all of that, they're all stored in one big table called sys choice. But you're not, once again, you're not interested in all of those records. You only want to have a subset of records, in this case, just for the impact. And so you have to know how that it works. So this is a good example. If there is a breakdown in there that is not out of the box, but you still want to use it, take this one, adjust it, make this not impact, but something else, that element setting, and you have your breakdown source defined. Do an insert and stay, and you have an additional new breakdown source. Like with indicator sources, the breakdown source is only the first step. With indicators, what we do is now we're going to determine which aggregation we put on that subset of records. For breakdown source, what we want to do with that is a bit different. What we want to do is have, okay, we have a number of open incidents, and we want to break it down, view that by, or group by impact or assignment group. So we have incident table, on which we have our indicator. We have the sys choice table, on which we have defined our breakdown. And now what we have to do is make sure that we relate the two tables to each other, right? So from the breakdown source, we first go to the breakdown. Let me go here. We give that a name, okay? And we say it's based on the incident impact. And now we're gonna create a mapping. So we're gonna relate that choice list table, or that subset of records from the choice list table, to that incident table. And in an incident, you will see that the incident table has a lot of columns, and one of those columns is impact. So this is where you make that relation, and it looks pretty straightforward. So you have your incident table, you have your field, you just select it from this box. If for whatever reason you do use impact, but you created a user-defined field for it, okay, then the out of the box will not work for you. So you have to then go scroll down, and then here you will probably find your user-defined field and relate that, or change this breakdown mapping to that field, to that column that you are using in your instance. But once again, in general, if you did not make those types of changes in your applications, the out of the box content packs work. Okay, that's breakdowns, sources, breakdowns, and finally, briefly touch upon scripts. We don't use a lot of scripts within performance analytics, certainly not within the out of the box content packs, because scripts are very expensive on the execution, on the collection, during collection. But I just want to show you, because people tend to be a bit scared about scripts. You don't have to be. The ones that come out of the box, I'm not technical at all, but I can read this. It's not that difficult. Here we have something like incident resolve time in hours. And this is really where you want, suppose you have an indicator, number of closed incidents or resolved incidents, and you want to break them down by some buckets of time that it took to close them. So less than 1 day, or between 1 and 3 days, and more than 3 days, and so on. What you need to do then is, okay, how long have they been open for? And then that would be, what is the difference between the result date and the open date? So you just want to subtract the two dates from each other. Now in ServiceNow, what happens is date times or date fields are stored in the database as an offset of January 1st, 1970, I think, and they are stored as milliseconds. So if you would go to the database directly without a UI or whatever, and look up this open, you will find a big number, and it's just the number of milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. So what we're going to do is we're going to distract these two numbers, okay? And what is the result of the distraction is, yeah, a number of milliseconds again. But I'm not interested in milliseconds. I want to see hours. So what we're going to do is that number that we get back, we're going to divide it first by 1,000 to get seconds, then by 60 to get minutes, then by 60 again to get hours. And that's what we did. It's based, in this case, two date fields, opened and resolved. If for whatever reason, for instance, you don't use opened or you don't use resolved, but you use closed at, okay, adjust the script like this. Okay, once you do that, make sure, because that's a platform thing, that you also change this one. Take out the resolved, okay, and put in closed. Where are you? And that's it. That's how you adjust the script. You don't have to be able to create your own script. As long as you can read it, you can change that accordingly. And of course, if you're not feel secure, get somebody in who understands the scripts better than you do. That's what I do usually. Anyways, so that's the final check that you want to do on your data artifacts. Once again, scripts are not used very often in the out-of-the-box stuff. If you can avoid using scripts, that would be really good. But sometimes there is no option and you have to use scripts. Okay, let me go back to the deck. And here we are. So that is that second step, review. And then first, let's reiterate it short, some of the concepts that we just talked about. So you have indicator and indicator sources. First of all, you have effects table called incidents, for instance. What you do, you apply conditions to it. So you get a subset of records. And that's where you put your aggregations on. And an aggregation on the subset, that's your indicator. That is your automated indicator. That is the indicators for which we collect the values. Okay. Now, so we have here, as an example, number of incidents closed today. And another one is total number of reassignments of incidents closed today, right? It's the same set of records. And those are, for these two indicators, we collect the values, we collect the scores, and then you can use them in a formula indicator, something like average number of reassignments of incidents closed today, and see that in a trend. Well, that is interesting information. Okay, and this would be a formula indicator. And for a formula indicator, we don't collect the values. We calculate them. We calculate them on the fly. As soon as you open up a dashboard, an analytics hub, wherever you use it, it will calculate the score and the whole trend. Okay. Now we talked about breakdown sources and breakdown mapping. So we have that incident table. We maybe have an indicator source. We have something like a number of open incidents, and we want to break it down by assignment group and by priority. See the dimensions, the filtering, and so on. So what we do is we first have to identify where is that information stored of the breakdown. So that could be in the groups table. It could be in a choices table. We put a set of conditions on it, so we get only the subset of records that we're really interested in. And then we have to make that mapping. So where is this assignment group table? Where is that referenced in the incident table? Oh, it's in the column group. So if you would look in a database, of course, in a database, it has that sys-ID. Okay. If you go to a record in the UI, it will still show the display value. But of course, the collection does not care about display value. The collection cares about sys-IDs. Okay, so that's the breakdown mapping. And then scripts. The way I think about scripts is what we do is we add some virtual columns to a record set. So we have incidents closed on today, but we also want to know if they are before a certain date, if there is a yes, no flag that we want to set, what the incident age is, because that is dynamic. Of course, that's only the age at the time of collection. It could change. Well, for incidents closed on today, it's different, but if it was open incidents, it could change every time. And it's during collection that we create these virtual columns. And then that script can be used to do an aggregation. So we do a can or something like that. Or we can also break it down to a certain bucket group. So that incident age per record, it shows you a number in something like 3 days, 2 hours, and 4 minutes. But you don't want to break it down on 3 days and 4 hours and 2 minutes and do that for each record, right? You want to bucket into something like less than 1 day, between 1 and 3 days, more than 3 days. And that's where the bucket group comes in. It goes a bit too much detail to explain that, but okay, just know that's there. Let me go quickly through this. So before we go to the next step, first and next poll question. So what value do we expect or have you experienced when starting with performance analytics? Is it to automate reports? Is it to for cost savings due to increased process efficiency? Or is it to find and avoid bottlenecks in workflows? Right, yeah, I see your question. It's quite a detailed question. I'll pick it up, but I'll do so offline if that's okay with you. And looking at the poll questions, thank you. Let's close this poll. We have 24 answers in here. And let me share the results. It's kind of mixed. Automate reporting, that's usually how people get started with performance analytics, and it's a very good use case, and it will save you a lot of time and money, and of course, because the reports are in your platform, always available live whenever you need them. We do that automatic score collection, so you have always up-to-date indicators and numbers there. So it is a very good use case, but it's not why we designed performance analytics. Performance analytics is really about improving your performance of the processes and workflows that you run in ServiceNow. So hopefully for the people that started with to automate report, you can also take the next steps. And this is where we really design performance analytics for. It's to find and avoid bottlenecks in your workflows and get the constraints out and make life for yourself and for your customers a lot better. So let's move on. And of course, I'm running out of time again. Somehow I always seem to manage this. Okay, next step would be collect scores. 2 collections that you want to do. When you get started with an out-of-the-box content pack, you want to do an historic score collection. So go back in time and collect scores for the last 60 days or 3 months. So you don't have to wait for the trend to build up in the next 6 weeks. No, you already have a trend once you get started. And then you have your daily score collection. So going forward, you just want to schedule a job that will collect those scores for those indicators on a regular basis. Usually for the out-of-the-box content pack, that would be a daily score collection. So what does that look like in the application? So going back to the instance, if we go to jobs here as part of data collector, then this is a very limited set of collections, just not to confuse you too much. But like I said, usually you have something like, get the right one, PA incident historic data collection and PA incident daily data collection. Let's take a look at the historic data collection. And this is what it looks like out of box for this content pack, incident management. It goes back 60 days and it ends on yesterday. That means what this will do, if I would run it, it's an historic score collection. It's based off the daily score collection. It will run 60 consecutive daily collections. So you can change this. You can even make this a fixed period. Sometimes that is needed if you want, for whatever reason, want to recollect something. When you recollect, it will override any existing scores. But let's go back to the right of this one. You can change this. You can make this something like 3 months, for instance, and go back. Sometimes people want to do a recollection for the last year. Always ask yourself how useful that is. What are you going to do with all that information from last year? There's not much you can change about it, especially on daily collections. I would 3 months. That sounds like a pretty good set of a date range to collect for it. It's up to you. You run it as a certain user. That could be interesting if you have a domain separated environment. Look up in the docs what the implications are. You want to run it in a time zone. It's usually the system time zone, but you can change from that. I know of customers who do all the reporting, for instance, in UTC. But yeah, that once again, that's up to you. And in this case, this is a job that is on demand. That means it's by default, it's not active. Even if I would check this, nothing happens. I really have to manually check this or click this button, execute now. Otherwise, nothing happens. For daily ones, if this one is active, if I would save this, what would happen? It would run a collection every day, collecting for the last 3 months. Now, that's not what you want because you're collecting the same values over and over again. That's not very useful. So let me switch back to on demand and so on, so we don't make a mistake here. And now what it will do is it will collect here for these 11 indicators. And as you can see, it will collect for most breakdowns, but for some, the breakdowns have been excluded, especially for the ones that are based on the indicator source incident open. There are exclusions, and that's the wrong button. I have to click this one. Oh, my, whatever. So here we have the breakdown. Assignment group and state are excluded for this number of open incidents. Why that is, I'll explain in a second. It has to do with historic score collection. Now, all good. Let's execute. Yeah, so the question here from Bruce, yes, you can run it multiple times per day, but in this case, what will happen, and that's how most of these collection jobs are set up, it will end 1 day ago. So it will collect up till yesterday. So on a daily score collection, it will collect all the values for yesterday. So there's not much point on recollecting what happened yesterday multiple times per day, but just be aware of that. Going to the job logs, and I did some tests before. So this is the new one, actually. So forget about this one, but let's take a look. What does it look like? Scroll down a bit, and here we have something like this one. So here it's collecting, don't worry about this too much. What I wanted to show you is these two date time fields. So it says greater than, was it April 13, 7 a.m. and smaller than April 14, 7 a.m., more or less 7 a.m. And I told you, well, it's collecting for yesterday. And that's because the dates are stored in UTC time in a database. So it makes that translation, because we wanted, remember, in the settings in the job, we said collect in the LA time zone. And so there's 7-hour difference between UTC and LA time zone, Pacific. So that's why it has this 7 o'clock. Also remember, when I showed you that indicator source, we have something like conditions like today. Those are really placeholders for real date. During collection, it will get replaced with actual dates and date times. And let me go back and actually, let's take a look here. Still collecting, well, almost done. It should generate the same number here. Let me also switch now to the other job. I'm really running out of time here. I'm sorry about that. I hope you can stay on a bit longer. Almost done. I think another 10 minutes or so. Here's that out of the box daily data collection. It's like I said, Bruce, it's going back one day. So it's collecting for yesterday only. You can change it. You can make it like 0. But I'm not sure if you really want to do it. You can, but be very careful about it. Apart from doing multiple intraday collections, there's also an option for indicators to turn on the real time. I did not point it out, but that means you go to an indicator and it shows on the indicator hub or on a dashboard and a specific widget, not the score as it was collected over yesterday, but the current number of open incidents like it is right now. Let me collect for this one, okay? And let me also go back here for a second to the slide deck, because I want to also talk a bit about that historic score collection. I'm going to skip this. I'm going to skip this as well. And I want to explain about some of the properties. So we have score collections. There are 7 properties with that, but the 4 most important ones are these ones. There is a maximum number of rows that you or that the job will fetch from the database based on an indicator source, and that is 50,000. And these values are much more like a guardrail, like help you. Maybe you made a mistake. Think about it. So I have a number of new incidents or number of close incidents, or even number of open incidents, and that subset of records, number of open incidents, that would be more than 50,000. That is quite a lot. It could be, but it could also be that you maybe made a mistake in your indicator source setting. You've got a condition, so it's retrieving much more records than you actually want. So that's what this is all about. Also, you can store the sysids that make up that number. And that is also by default limited to 5,000. Then we have a default value for the maximum number of elements for a breakdown, like 10,000 records. Think of it, we're talking about assignment group, more than 10,000 assignment groups, more than 10,000 services. Could be more than 10,000 CIs, I'm sure you have. But the question is also, once again, yes, we could collect for all of these, but who is actually ever going to look at those numbers? 10,000 on a daily basis? I don't see it happening, but it's there. You can adjust it to your needs. And then I did not discuss it, but maybe you're aware. So what we have is second level of breakdowns. What does it mean? You have a number of open incidents. You break it down by assignment group. So you see per assignment group. And then you can do another breakdown inside per assignment group. You can break it down by category or something, or by service. And there is a limit to, it says here, maximum number of elements produced by combining two breakdowns, that's set to 1 million. If that's not good enough for you, you can raise that number, but be careful. It also takes away performance. And then about historic score collections, what we do is we go back in time to find the number that score on period -6, -7, and so on. But there are some limitations, because what we do is we collect from the incident table, and the incident table only holds the current values. So the incident tables showed me the values as they are on April 14. It does not show me the values as they were on April 1. That is in the audit table, but we don't query the audit table, right? That audit table, that's a big one. So we have that limitation that we can only collect the values as they are right now in the incident table. And that has some impact, especially on fields like the last update date or the reassignment count, because that reassignment count for a given record, if I look at it right now, it could be 3, but going back like to April 1st, maybe that number was 1 or 2, but I don't know, but I can only see in the incident table the current value. So if you have an indicator based on something in condition or whatever on reassignment count, yes, you can collect that moving forward, but not historically. And that's what this is all about the reassignment count, state, assignment group. Usually those values, those fields that change during the life cycle of a ticket, of a record, for that, you cannot do historic score collections. So that's now also stated here in these bullets. And then the final step that you want to do is just make sure that the out of the box works as you hope it will work. You have to check the results, and what you do is just simply go to the dashboards or and the widgets on top of it, or you can go to something like the Analytics Hub. And this is another way of seeing that we have collected scores for these indicators. You can see trends. For some, you don't see a trend, right? Because we could only collect the latest score. We could not go back in time to find, because that's that update date, so that does not work. But you can already see some interesting things here, like the average age of open instances going up, while at the same time, a number of open instances is going down. So we were apparently closing, not closing the older tickets. That's what happened here. If you take a look at number of open incidents, really quick, sorry, we go 5 minutes over, but I hope it's worth the effort. What you can see here is those scores that we have collected. And as you can see right now, I'm based in Amsterdam, so it shows me now 8 p.m. But right now, that value is 274. This is a real-time value. The actual collected value for yesterday is 711. Okay, so, oh, wait a second. For yesterday, it's actually 499. So in this example, we closed over 25 tickets today, which is good because we want that number to be as low as possible. So this is called green, right? What you can also see is go to the records. It also collects those records. It collects the sysids, that is. So if I go back in time and go here, then we see our 1,000 open incidents on April 1st. These are the incidents, but you can see a lot of them have already been closed because they were closed April 4th, but on April 1, they were an open incident. So going back to, or going to the last one, this is where you see a couple of these records that are still open, the ones that have an empty close date. This is what you would like to do. You go in, you check your numbers, probably with the subject matter expert. You also do that for the different breakdowns, see if these numbers make sense, if they are correct, and so on. And if you feel good about it, then it's the time to share your dashboards with your users. So that's that part. Final slides here. So that's your check that you're going to do. Now, I mentioned that we have a roundtable next week set up, and we want to hear from you. And this is really like a first step in this roundtable. When you are there, or were there any impediments that blocked you or your organization from starting with performance analytics? Was it because you were not sure how to get started? Is it too much overlap with reporting, or is PA too complicated to set up? And I hope I see some of you answer it's too complicated. I hope I demystified some parts of that in this webinar. It's just an hour took me to go through all those basic data artifacts. I know there's a lot more detail to it, but the basic artifacts, you know, I collected the scores. You see results directly in your analytics hub, in your dashboards, and so on. So to get started, it's usually not that complicated. Because of time, let me close this poll and share the result. So a few of you said not sure how to get started. Like I said, I hope I demystified that a bit. What is even more important, and this is the best tip of the whole webinar, I'm sorry you had to wait an whole hour for it, but if you want to know how to get started, what you need to do is this one. Let me share my browser again. What you want to do is you want to go to the community. And go to the forum, and this is an easy one. It's the top one, analytics, intelligence, and reporting. Okay. And then from here, you have that first tile over here. It says getting started. And this really helps you, walks you through all the steps that I just been talking about. It starts off with quite a lot. It's much more information in there, but the basic steps are all here. It has some intro videos and so on. Some are 5 minutes. It tells you to activate, to configure, to analyze. And then also what we have here is a whole bunch of resources. You can go and click and take a look at the pages, and you go step by step. All the things that I just showed you is explained here as well. But what's really cool is this whole list of all kinds of material and collateral available to you. A lot of them are self-paced. Some are take like an hour, some are even shorter. You can do a lot of hands-on labs as well. There's actually much more than is listed out here. If you really want to know, you go to the learning portal, and now learning. And what you can do over here is, look for performance analytics, and you get all kinds of collateral. A lot of them are what we call on demand. There are self-paced, and it really this is actually a very good one. The essentials. It's not only for your admins, the PA admins, but also for users, so they get a good start understanding what performance analytics does and cannot do, and so on. And a lot of on-demand courses, short ones, like for instance, hey, how does that work with widgets and so on. Very, very good set of resources here. So final slide here. And here we have also that list again. I'm sorry, I don't have time anymore. I hope that you will join us next week for the roundtable, and then we can have a more open discussion amongst ourselves and try to help each other moving forward with performance analytics. I want to thank you all for attending. Once again, apologies for going over the time, but I hope it was still very useful to you. Thank you all. Bye-bye. Enjoy your Easter weekend, by the way.